It is disgraceful that a great political party, much less Abraham Lincoln's party, a party of liberty and union, should be reduced to a cult of authoritarian personality in league with autocrats and kleptocrats and dictators all over the world. The Republicans break, but they can't bend. In other words, there's no ability to accommodate other views because everybody has to follow Donald Trump like a monarch. That's what the election is going to be about. Democracy and freedom versus dictatorship and authoritarianism.
Hi again, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in New York with the 2024 presidential contest largely set. We know which two individuals will face off against one another, but they represent more than just two different guys from two different parties. They are two different sets of values and morals, two polar opposite views of governing, two totally opposite definitions for how they see America today and America's future. Putting this existential question now before us, the American voters. Do we want to remain a democracy, or do we want to take this hard turn into an autocracy? And making that mean something, right? In a way that was very reminiscent of his infamous American Carnage inauguration speech. Donald Trump last night celebrated his big wins, his decisive wins on Super Tuesday by attacking the country that delivered them, attacking the people who live in the country he ostensibly seeks to lead. He called the United States a, quote, third world country, pointing specifically at our borders and taking direct aim at our democracy, at our elections. It goes along with other autocratic-leaning remarks he has made in recent weeks and months, such as ones that echo Hitler, his public broadcasting that he wants to be a dictator on day one, that is his stated plan, and his continued spreading of the big lie, all with practically no pushback from the leaders of the party, the Republican Party. Today we saw a Republican Party that is fully rolled over into this slide toward autocracy. Every member of Senate GOP leadership, including Mitch McConnell, who essentially referred Trump criminally for his conduct on January 6th, has, as of just this morning, officially endorsed the ex-president. Republicans have turned their backs on Democratic allies in Ukraine and other parts of the world. They're waging a war that they know is hugely unpopular against women's reproductive rights. Last night, Republican voters in North Carolina chose a candidate for governor who has a history of saying such insane things, derogatory comments about women and others. In 2021, he called the LGBTQ community filth. He once boasted about having an AR-15, which he said he intended to use against the government if it, quote, gets too big for its britches, end quote. Well, this is happening while President Joe Biden has been clear-eyed about the battle for the country's soul since his first message in the first campaign. A little reminder of what he said during that speech.
All-out war is what Trump wants. That's why he doesn't understand the most fundamental truth about this country. Unlike other nations on earth, America is not built on ethnicity, religion, geography. We're the only nation in the history of the world built on an idea. Not hyperbole, built on an idea. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. We have a long way to go, but we've never walked away from the idea.
So we start the hour, my dear friend, host of the Rachel Maddow Show here on MSNBC, the author of Prequel, An American Fight Against Fascism. Rachel Maddow is here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Especially after last night.
Thanks for having me here. Did you get any sleep?
I did. I'm good. A baby, I got a dog in a cone, I'm got mayhem, but I did sleep. I did sleep.
The dog in the cone and the baby, are they interacting at all? Is the baby weirded out by the cone?
No, oddly, everybody mixes it up.
Everybody's cool with it.
Glorious.
If there's enough ambient weirdness, nothing is too weird.
Correct.
Everybody expects everything.
And then the messes all become what you sort of wiping puke and it's anyway. You have to come over. You'll love it.
Can't wait.
So one of my favorite conversations that you led last night was when Lawrence came and we were talking about sort of the things that are still in the DNA of the two parties, that the Republicans fall in line. And the Democrats sort of wait to fall. I think they largely love Joe Biden and what he's done, but they want to be more madly in love with someone or something. And it was on display last night. I mean, Donald Trump has all of this resistance. He's losing like 35 to 50% of the primary voters. And Mitch McConnell falls in line after Trump assailed his wife with a racist attack. You could Joe Biden. I mean, and you crack me up. But Biden wins 98%, and then like 2% goes uncommitted. And Democrats are still wringing their hands, like, well, I don't know, will Newsom get in? But it is bonkers. Can you make sense of that for me?
I mean, there's two different things going on in the two different parties, right? The Democrats are renominating an incumbent president who has been a very successful president. He's not the world's most popular president, but he's been very successful. Lots of bipartisan legislation, all the stuff he said he wanted to get done, he's mostly gotten done. We've got this really best-in-class economic recovery post-COVID of all of the big countries in the world. Everything that he's set out to do, he's done, and he's kind of done it on the terms he said he was going to do it. Joe Biden got in there saying, listen, I'm going to be the president for everybody and expect all my big legislative stuff to be bipartisan. And that's exactly what he's done. So the Democratic Party is like marching down the middle lane of Normalville, right? Republican Party is engaged in a different project. And there's a reason that nobody in the Republican Party cares that the Republican-controlled Congress isn't making any policy say. There's a reason nobody knows what Donald Trump's policy is on Gaza say. There's a reason nobody in the Republican Party is contesting what's going on with Joe Biden because they have a different idea for what we should be doing on infrastructure. There's just no governing talk happening at all in the Republican Party. It's instead about this idea that America is a disaster. America's in decline. America's being laughed at. America is humiliated. And there must be extreme measures taken to fundamentally change the course of the country or we're all going to die. Those are just two different things. And what that latter thing is, the reason you've been doing this series on autocracy is not the project of a governing party. It's a project of a party that is trying to get rid of the form of government that we have and install something else.
But where I lose the plot is that the Republicans are to the degree that the country's in any decline, it is the threat of a second Trump turn. I had former Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull on, and I said, will we still be part of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing? And he said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, America becoming a threat, which is what it becomes, a threat to the world order if Trump is reelected, is a known, to quote Don Rumsfeld. It is a known. And I don't know if former Defense Secretary Mattis or Mark Milley will come out and say those things, but everyone in the national security establishment who worked in and was around the Trump term will tell you that. And what they would say privately and by the end publicly is America can survive one Trump term, it won't survive a second. That is a fact of the view of those who were tasked with protecting our national security during his presidency before, and probably some are still in those agencies. And yet, Mitch McConnell, who has access to that, if I have access to that information, Mitch McConnell does too, endorsed Trump today.
Because the Republican Party is engaged in a group decision that they are trying to change what the United States is, right? I mean, if you want to support the idea of America as a democracy, we are a multiracial, pluralistic society with lots of different kinds of people and economic freedom and all of the other civil society things that support us being a big, complex society. It's really hard to have, for centuries, a pluralistic, egalitarian democracy. There are very few of these in the history of the world. And if you don't want that, if you don't want everybody to have a say, for us to decide what we're going to do based on democratically held, free and fair elections, then you have a party here. I mean, when Trump used violence and fraud and intimidation to try to throw out election results and stay in power anyway, the response of the Republican Party was not to be horrified. For the most part, the response of the elected and leading Republican Party was to figure out how they could help him get away with it. And McConnell, this brief and shining moment where he orchestrated the acquittal of Trump in the Senate so that Trump would not be banned from holding federal office ever again, because he said, the courts will take care of it. And then all the justices who he orchestrated getting onto the court said, no, we are not going to take care of it. And now McConnell.
And we're going to make sure that that Judge Chutkan's, we're going to make sure that no court can take.
The courts will not save us here. The only thing that will save us here is if What I believe is the pro-democracy supermajority in this country decides we're not only going to stand up for democracy in the abstract by saying nice things about it, we're actually going to use our democracy to stop this iteration of the Republican Party from getting rid of it. The Republicans have to not be counted on to sort of do this themselves. We can all see what's happening in the Republican Party now. There was a primary, didn't work out to oust Donald Trump. There was a chance for leaders like Mitch McConnell to literally have Donald Trump barred from ever holding federal office again. They didn't do it. We saw Republicans on the courts who have lifetime tenure and are therefore protected from the kinds of blowback that other politicians might be worried about, nevertheless get in line behind their partisan patrons. The Republican Party will not save us here. We cannot wait for the Republican Party to wake up. Nothing is going to happen inside the Republican Party other than efforts to get Donald Trump what he wants, which is to get rid of our form of government. The only way the country gets saved is if Republicans are blocked by the democratic process because Democrats win instead. That's the only thing left to us.
What is it like? I mean,
The only thing left to us is what should have been pursued in the late 80s, which would be a Holy Ghost revival pertaining to God Almighty. That's what's going to save not just America, but the planet. Once more, we're getting caught up in this net in between a hard place and a rock. And we appreciate all these people's opinions because that's all they are, is opinions. But the fact of the matter is, the people have spoken. And the people have awoken, finally, towards the sleeping giant.
I always try to get an answer to this question because it sort of, I'm burning with curiosity about it. But what is it like for lifelong progressives to have to hold space for Republicans to be in their coalition if all they have in common is a love for our democracy?
Yeah. I mean, listen, I have always felt like, you know, I'm a liberal and as liberal as they come and always have been. But I've always felt like I had more in common with people who care about what happens to the country than people who don't care, who are checked out, who don't think it matters. Even if you have radically different ideas.
I mean, I'm thinking of your interview with Liz Cheney and you're talking. Yeah, like come back so we can fight about stuff later, but
there is nothing on which I agree with Liz Cheney. Like even the easy stuff we don't agree on. Like we both fish. I hate the way she fishes. You know, I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean? I mean, it's absolutely everything. But if you care about the future of our country, that is grounds for us to work together. But I do think we have to recognize after Super Tuesday last night, after Mitch McConnell today, now with Nikki Haley out of the race, I really and now with the Republican appointees on the courts doing what they have done at the highest court in the land, I really think we need to get clear about the fact that the project of the Republican Party is to install a strongman form of government in the United States and get rid of democracy. And that is the project of electing Donald Trump. And that's what the Republican Party is for now. And so if you have been part of the Republican Party, you have to recognize that that's now the new project of your party. And you may need to leave that party now in order to work with the rest of Americans who disagree with you on a lot of different things, but who want our country to stay a democracy. And we're just in that extreme a place.
and how do you unbraid how tongue-tied Democrats get trying to communicate that? They want to bring their white papers and they want to solve all the policy. How do you make them just say that?
I mean, you just say it, right? I mean, you just do your best. And Nicole, I feel like one of the things that is that we keep coming back to, and I so appreciate you being willing to talk about like the big, deep, dark stuff alongside the daily news.
That's all I want to talk about. When they're like, there's breaking news, I'm like, just wait a minute. Just wait a minute. I got 2 hours.
I have a historian who I want to talk to.
I was desperate to get to Tim Snyder yesterday. They're like, but Super Tuesday. I'm like, all right, fine.
But Tim Snyder was brilliant.
He's the
here.
best.
I mean, listen, I feel like the reason that I've been spending the last year and a half basically just reading history all the time is because what we've learned from history is that no, there isn't a magic bullet. The courts don't save you, no individual institution saves you, all that stuff. But what does save you, what people count on, what matters is for us to all keep making the case.
Right.
Explain how.
What's going to save us is good old-fashioned common sense. That's what's going to save us, because between both parties, they have put us where we are today in basically disarray. These are the consequences towards what other politicians have done or did not do that they should have done regarding our state of affairs.
Explain how authoritarianism works. Explain why strongman appeals sound great but aren't a good idea.
Right.
Explain what happens when democracies used to be democracies gave that away and then never were able to get it back. Just keep talking about what we know is true. And I believe in the American people that we are capable of learning. We are capable of reassessing what we thought we knew. And I believe we're capable of repentance and redemption. I do. And there's no other shortcut around it.
I mean, this idea of, two ideas that, and then I want to deal with some of the history that you tell and that I sort of grab onto. I mean, you're open about Poland was something that Tim Snyder referenced yesterday when I said, is there any example of a country getting this close and pulling back? And I remember your A-block and then Poland, 2023. And there are these, and then you grab onto them because they give you a little bit of hope. Sarah Matthews today, former Trump communications director, I put back to her something Tim Snyder said yesterday, that strongmen don't care about their supporters,
Yes.
but they need their supporters to want a strongman. And I said, did Trump care about his supporters? She said, never, not one of them. And so you do feel sort of like whatever it is, the ice sculpture, where every day you get a little flick out of it and you start to see it coming into shape, but it feels so daunting. And I know you deal in your book with another horrific, heinous chapter where they counted on Americans not valuing or caring about their democracy. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. So in the lead up to World War II, the Justice Department put a bunch of Americans on trial for sedition. And it was a tricky charge. Sedition is always really hard to prove. And these were people who were doing some things that were obviously illegal. They were trying to induce people to mutiny in the armed forces, trying to get people not to register with the Selective Service. You can't do that in wartime. That's pretty clear. But they were also doing things like spreading conspiracy theories and being really, really violently anti-Semitic, advocating for violence against people in the United States, but also denigrating the democracy, saying that elections were a fraud. And what the Justice Department did is they decided to charge that as a conspiracy with Germany. And they brought over from Germany a man who had been a close confidant of Adolf Hitler's, who had taken very close notes when Hitler in 1933 was talking about his designs on America. And Hitler described to this confidant that there were so many fissures and splits in the American polity, in the American public, that if you exploited those just the right way, you could get Americans to give up their own democracy and to be ready for a fascist takeover.
Haunting.
And that's what Hitler himself explained he planned to do to the United States. And so the Justice Department, at the end of its case, this big, crazy, sprawling, ultimately unsuccessful sedition trial in 1944, what they brought was this German guy to the stand to explain how this was part of the Hitlerian conspiracy for Americans getting rid of their democracy. And that was the second to last witness called before the judge died in the case. And there was a mistrial and all those people got away.
Did the judge just die? Or did the judge mysteriously just die, possibly poisoned or killed? You have to recognize that our adversary, which is out to kill, steal, and destroy, pertaining to going up against the Christian society, and it doesn't matter if it's a Christian society that only claims to be a Christian society or it's an actual Christian society, these evil demonic entities have attacked us from within. And this was the very thing that Brezhnev said, that we will take over the American people and never fire a shot. Never fire a shot! That's the direction that we're heading in if we do not awaken the sleeping giant.
But what they brought into that courtroom and that evidence, and indeed the books written by this Hitler confidant, same as Rauschning, you can still read his stuff today. It's just, this stuff doesn't change. It's the same playbook over and over again. You want people to get rid of their democracy, you turn them against each other, you make people feel like we're in decline, it's a disaster, we need extreme measures, and you can't let these evil people around us who have caused all these problems have a say in what needs to happen. We need a strong man to save us. it's the same message over and over and over again for the decades and now the generations. And I think the more we understand that it's a tactic, it's a plan, and it's designed to make you give up your vote so that the strong man never has to pay attention to you again, I believe Americans will choose against it.
But then again, that may be the very thing that pushes the Americans towards supporting it due to the failures that has already occurred. These people, once more, are not necessarily fighting for themselves. They're fighting for generations, their children and their children's children below them. We know that the system has failed. We know that various people have bamboozled the American people to the extent that they have been caught blindsided. Now they are awakening. What happens from this moment on will be the will of the people. Regardless of how you stack it, pack it, turn it around, put decorations on it, whatever. The bottom line is that the people have finally awakened, are beginning to awaken to the fact that doom and gloom is on the horizon, and there is actually a word for that, a people that sits, lay in wait for a group of people that are basically at their wits' end, that's basically whenever this type of person, I don't know who that person may be, but that's basically when an opportunity comes to where a certain entitlement, I forgot the name of it now, will come into play because it's basically the right time at the right place with the right people. Like I said, I forgot the name of the word now, but there's a word for it in a positioning factor of what is at stake because the so-called Christian society failed to do the proper and right things going all the way back into the late 80s. It's starting to get interesting now because now hairs are starting to be split, and we'll just have to wait it out and see what happens. But the bottom line is this: we have to have solutions to the problems, or whoever gets elected will actually be part of the problem. And so far, what Biden has done, as far as I'm concerned, has actually been part of the problem versus part of the solution to it. Now, I don't know if this means that we're going to have to fall into a tyranny type country as far as doing stuff that we haven't been doing for the past 25, 30 plus years, in being more I guess the right word would be more proactive in our laws, especially whenever it comes to the capital punishment laws. But we'll see, because I guarantee you, all these other leaders in all these other countries, what happened yesterday, last night, rung a bell. And the bell that got rung may be the wrong bell. Especially whenever you're talking about somebody that, first of all, is against global warming. Drill, 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 drill is his motto. We're talking about somebody that does not believe in environmental global warming. We're talking about somebody that basically wanted to either sabotage or blackmail the Ukrainian people there towards the beginning. We're talking about somebody that basically said that if the European people pertaining to the United Nations did not stack up to their accordiances, that as far as he was concerned, Russia could do whatever he wanted to with them. I don't know where he necessarily stands pertaining to Jerusalem with that particular event over there, But there's so many different issues that people today really need to look at, because if they think that what's going on the other side of the pond ain't going to affect what goes on over here, you're basically in Twilight Zone, because I guarantee you it will. Whatever happens over there will affect us over here. No ifs, ands, buts about it.
Believe and hope that a majority will, but what do you think explains? I mean, Von Hilliard is doing such extraordinary reporting, and he's having these really revealing conversations with people who say, I want a strong man. I think sometimes you need one.
I want a king. I want it to be, people say, I want it to be Donald Trump, and then I want it to be Donald Jr., and then I want it to be Barron, and then we want a mob.
Let's go on here with national news here.
A DUI conviction can be life-shattering. You need an attorney committed to preventing the...
I may have broke away just a little too early here.
Some interest until
It
March
looks like I have.
2029 on in-store purchases.
It sure does.
Celebrate and save
Should
today.
have waited
Only at Ashley.
another 20 seconds.
Friday at 8.
At 9, right here on KFBS 2 tonight. Your first alert station, KFBS
First alert,
12.
first alert, first alert. Here we go.
Loaded Alec Baldwin's gun before that deadly shooting on the set of Rust. The jury taking just over 2 hours to deliver the verdict. Weapons handler Hannah Gutierrez-Reed guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but not guilty of tampering with evidence. Our report coming up. Also tonight, the Biden-Trump rematch now set after Nikki Haley announces she's suspending her campaign, but declining to endorse the former president. Now the battle is on for her supporters. The GOP uniting behind Mr. Trump. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, after saying Mr. Trump was responsible for the January 6th attack, today endorsing him. The crackdown in New York City.
What do you expect?
Deploying hundreds of National Guardsmen.
What do you expect? Birds of a feather flock together. Isn't that the very thing that Christ said? That if the blind lead the blind, the both shall leadeth off into the ditch? It just goes to show you how two-faced that various politicians are, that will not stick to that in which what is fair or right, but they'll fall in line towards the big money, following after the other big money, because they think that that's where their security is, even though we're trillions and trillions of dollars in debt. They're still playing the same old game. And I got news for a lot of them out there. That game is no longer going to be effective, especially whenever people over here in America go to hurting so badly that they'll awaken from their stupor or their deception that has been placed upon their lives in seeing all this stuff occur. I hate to see it to America. I really do. I hate to see the hardships that it's going to take to awaken these people. But obviously that's the path that they're on right now, that I guarantee you people like Putin, other leaders of other countries are paying very, very close attention. Very close attention.
Guardsmen into the subways as transit crime surges. In Philadelphia, a mass shooting near a transit bus, 18 shot. What we're learning. In the Middle East, the first deadly attack launched by the Iran-backed Houthis in response to the Israel-Hamas war. The massive cyber attack causing chaos at pharmacies nationwide. Patients blocked from getting their prescriptions. And is this the future of air travel? The TSA's new technology that lets you screen yourself. This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Good evening. Just breaking tonight in New Mexico, a verdict in the involuntary manslaughter trial of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer who loaded Alec Baldwin's gun in that fatal shooting on the Rust movie set. Tonight, the jury delivering a split verdict just hours after getting the case, finding Gutierrez-Reed guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but not guilty of tampering with evidence. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed in the incident, and actor and executive producer Alec Baldwin is set to go to trial next. Chloe Melas is here to digest this breaking news. Chloe, what's the latest?
Good evening, Lester. It took the jury just over 2 hours to deliver their verdict, finding Hannah Gutierrez-Reed guilty of involuntary manslaughter and not guilty of tampering with evidence. Her mother, emotional, as Gutierrez-Reed was remanded into custody. She now faces up to 18 months in prison. In the nearly 2-week criminal trial, witnesses described a reckless environment on the New Mexico film set, which Gutierrez-Reed was in charge of guns and ammunition. Emotional testimony included the film's assistant director, who handed the prop gun loaded with live ammunition to actor Alec Baldwin. Baldwin fired the gun, killing cinematographer Helena Hutchins. Prosecutors in their closing arguments called Gutierrez-Reed's actions negligent, careless, and thoughtless. Gutierrez-Reed's defense attorney doubled down on placing the blame on Baldwin. He also faces involuntary manslaughter charges, and his criminal trial begins in July. He has pleaded not guilty, Lester.
All right, Chloe, thanks very much. Let's turn now to the race for the White House. President Biden and former President Trump easily dominating Super Tuesday, unofficially setting up a November rematch. With Nikki Haley dropping out, there's a new battle for her supporters, all as Mr. Trump is calling on President Biden to debate. Garrett Haig now with the latest.
This is 220. Tonight, the rematch, though polls show most Americans don't want it. After their massive wins in nearly every Super Tuesday contest, President Biden and former President Trump appear set for another face-off, with Nikki Haley now dropping out of the Republican race.
In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well.
Haley then challenging her former boss, whom she pointedly did not endorse.
It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him. And I hope he does that.
The battle now on for her backers. President Biden urging Haley's supporters to join him in opposing Mr. Trump, writing, "I know there is a lot we won't agree on. I hope and believe we can find common ground." Mr. Trump inviting Haley's supporters to join, quote, the greatest movement in the history of our nation, while boasting Haley got trounced last night.
They call it Super Tuesday for a reason.
The former president carrying 14 of 15 states in play overnight, NBC News projects, securing landslide victories from Maine to Minnesota to California, with Haley winning only Vermont, allowing Mr. Trump to focus fully on President Biden.
He's the worst president in the history of our country. There's never been anything like what's happening to our country.
Mr. Trump also securing the endorsement of Mitch McConnell, who had sharply criticized the former president's conduct around January 6th, and was the last remaining member of Republican congressional leadership not to support his return to the White House. But today, McConnell praising Trump, writing, "During his presidency, we worked together to accomplish great things for the American people." Despite her big defeats, Haley did attract more than a quarter of the vote in many primaries. Trump's challenge, Haley voters unwilling to shift their support.
There's no way I want Trump in office.
Meanwhile, NBC News projecting President Biden won nearly every Democratic contest, except for a surprising loss in the American Samoa caucus. Recent polls show Mr. Trump leading Mr. Biden in a head-to-head matchup within the margin of error. Now the Trump campaign will look to scale up and shift focus towards November.
People shouldn't expect a big change in tone or strategy from the campaign or the candidate.
Why? It's working. What we're currently doing is working.
All right, Garrett joining me now. Garrett, the former president now challenging President Biden to debates.
That's right, Lester. After boycotting the Republican primary debates, Mr. Trump says he's now willing to debate President Biden, quote, anytime, anywhere, any place. The Biden campaign responding, not committing to debates yet, saying they will consider it at the appropriate time. Lester?
All right, Garrett Haig tonight. Thank you. Breaking news in Alabama, where a final bill to protect in vitro fertilization has passed. This comes after the state Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos are children. Laura Jarrett now with late details.
Tonight, fertility patients and doctors in Alabama anxious to see a new bill signed into law that's meant to shield clinics from costly lawsuits. Under the new law, fertility clinics and companies would not be criminally responsible if an embryo is destroyed, and civil damages are now limited to the cost of one IVF cycle.
We have women who have been waiting for this bill to pass and, in fact, anticipating embryo transfers as soon as tomorrow or Friday.
The bills were fast-tracked by state lawmakers under mounting pressure to course correct. after that Alabama Supreme Court decision allowing 3 couples to sue for wrongful death when their frozen embryos were dropped and destroyed at a fertility clinic. Multiple clinics fearing the court ruling would open the door to civil lawsuits abruptly halted all IVF procedures. Some embryo shipping companies also pausing all business in and out of Alabama, sending many patients in the middle of fertility treatments to call on lawmakers to do something. But the new bill does nothing to address the underlying reasoning of the court decision, equating frozen embryos to children.
We're not addressing the core central issue. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhaging wound when we're talking about refusing to address the actual constitutional crisis that we have created.
Megan Coles, whose surrogate had an embryo transfer canceled last month, cautiously optimistic about this new law, even if only a temporary fix.
This has been probably the worst 2 weeks of our lives. We were devastated, and then we heard about this legislation, and so then we became hopeful again. It's been an up and down roller coaster.
And Laura, it sounds like these treatments could resume pretty quickly.
That's right, Lester. It all depends, though, on how fast the governor signs this into law. The clinics have told us they are prepared to restart treatments very quickly, even with all of these outstanding legal questions, Lester.
All right, Laura, thank you. Here in New York, a wave of violent crime in the subway.
Listen to this.
Governor Kathy Hochul to order the deployment of hundreds of National Guard members to protect passengers. With more on that, here's Stephanie Gosk.
Now you wonder if America is heading towards utopia and peace, love, mercy, grace, the things that the Bible teaches us that we're supposed to be heading towards. I'll let you make your own decision in what you're witnessing right here in New York. And the hot summer heat hadn't even got here yet. So you can only imagine the tempers that's going to flare, the weirdos, the freaks, the hot-headed people, those that are basically have lost their minds pertaining to drug activity. You can only imagine what's to be expected down the road in watching what you're seeing happening in New York City. Please watch.
In New York City, subway riders are on edge.
I don't feel safe.
Crime is rising on the trains, according to NYPD data. In recent weeks, multiple violent assaults, including this terrifying moment when a woman bashed cellist Ian Forrest in the head, performing on a subway platform. The second time he's been attacked.
They say lightning doesn't strike twice, but this was a terrible moment, deja vu.
Today, New York's Governor Kathy Hochul said she is assembling a team of 1,000, including the National Guard and state police, to help secure the massive transit system.
These brazen, heinous attacks on our subway system will not be tolerated.
Teams will be stationed at the busiest and most problematic stations, searching bags. Civil liberties activists calling it overreaction and overreach.
Do you think you will have an impact on weapons getting on the subway with these bag searches?
Absolutely. First of all, it's a deterrent. And if anyone's thinking of coming into the subway system with a weapon, there's probably a good chance they're going to get caught.
Mike Kemper is the NYPD transit chief. The big problem, he says, is repeat offenders.
We arrest people all the time that have 50 plus arrests, 100 plus arrests.
The dramatic moves in New York happening as 77% of Americans are concerned about a rise in crime, even though FBI data shows violent crime has been dropping nationwide since a spike in 2020. But multiple cities are taking steps to crack down. In Philadelphia, the chief of transit police vowing to aggressively combat crime after 3 deadly shootings in a week involving the city's buses. 8 teenagers shot today alone.
We're going to target every criminal code on the books.
In San Francisco, voters passed 2 measures on Tuesday aimed at law and order, including expanding police surveillance tools with more cameras and drones. In New York City, they will also be adding cameras. In this control center, they can see every station. Soon, they will have cameras on every subway car.
Stephanie, as you know, millions of people take the subways here every day. They certainly can't check everyone's bag. How is this going to work?
So,
Lester, the transit chief says they're going to focus on the busy stations and those places where they've had repeated security issues. These search teams will rotate around. They could pop up anywhere. The transit chief says that is part of the strategy, Lester.
Stephanie Goski in New York tonight. Thank you. In the Middle East, there has been a deadly attack on a commercial ship by an Iranian-backed militia. U.S. officials say a missile fired by Houthi militants struck a cargo ship in the Gulf of Aden, killing 3 crew members.
My God.
They are the first deaths reported in a wave of Houthi attacks on ships that have continued despite retaliatory strikes by the U.S. military. And we'll turn now to the crisis in Haiti, the prime minister leaving the country, and now on U.S. soil as violent gangs overtake most of the capital. The question now, will the U.S. get involved? Let's get more from Gabe Gutierrez.
Tonight, Haiti is on the brink of civil war as it spirals into chaos. The U.S., along with a group of Caribbean nations, is pressing Haiti's prime minister to speed up a political transition. Ariel Henry had been missing for days, but landed yesterday in Puerto Rico. Clashes between heavily armed gangs and Haitian police have escalated after a mass prison break over the weekend. The White House says it will not send in American troops.
We have underscored that now is the time to finalize a political accord to help set Haiti on a path to a better future.
Right now, the near future looks bleak. Henry took office following the 2021 assassination of Haiti's president. We were there as the violence ramped up. This has become daily life here in Haiti. Tires burning on city streets, protesters furious. Now, gangs control about 80% of Port-au-Prince. The State Department is urging all Americans to leave immediately, but the main airport is shut down. In Miami, Haitian Americans are scrambling to evacuate loved ones.
Human beings should be live in a peace, not in a crime like that.
Tony Jantano says his uncle went to visit his mother in Haiti, but now gang members are holding him for ransom.
Your family is calling you, crying when you're about to sleep. This is crazy. This is terrible.
Right now, it is not clear whether Haiti's embattled prime minister plans to return to the country. The White House said today it is not helping him in Puerto Rico. Lester?
Yeah, good.
Now, you just got through watching what the mayor is doing in New York pertaining to the subway system with all the cameras, and which I'm really surprised that the cameras hadn't been there all along. And they're going to have to put up some really top-notch security cameras to keep baseball bats and guns from blowing them up, because if somebody's going to create or do a criminal crime, knowing that there's cameras in there, that's going to be one of the first things that they're going to target, is trying to destroy those cameras that's witnessing what's going on in that particular fuselage. Now, the stuff that's going on over in Africa right now, that's what we can look forward to what's going to happen right here in the good old USA if we don't bond together and if we don't recognize what's happening pertaining to the Bible fulfilling itself, that Satan will come down in great wrath pertaining to a spiritual, evil, demonic being, because it or he knows his time is short. We are living in the last final days, my friends, regardless whether you're an atheist, agnostic, regardless whether you're this, that, or the other. We are in the last days, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better, especially if we do not bond together. Especially if we do not bond together.
At the White House. Thank you. We'll take a break. In 60 seconds, the massive cyber attack affecting hospitals, doctors' offices, and pharmacies. The impact on patients and what you need to know right after this.
I get a drug called Novolog every 90 days, which is basically 5 boxes. It's fairly expensive. It's 70/30 pertaining to my diabetic 2 development that developed in my life since I was poisoned by the state officials up in Kentucky towards trying to put me on Risperdal, that basically messed my whole metabolism system up. My pharmacist told me less than a week ago, Dennis, I cannot provide for you the 5 boxes that I normally provide for you. I said, why? He said, because we have had a fluctuation with problems in the medical industry of shortages of things that you would not never ever believe. And I'm convinced that this is probably part of it, along with other major supply chains that used to be Johnny on the spot towards making sure that we got what we needed to get. And I'm talking about suppliers like coming from China that are no longer effective, and they're probably using every excuse that they can think of. And the fact of the matter is they're probably purposely doing this. People don't realize how vulnerable that we have become by allowing for China to basically manufacture 90% of all our equipment, all our medical equipment, from hoses to masks to whatever, large pieces of equipment that cost over $1 million to a little bitty tiny pill. 90% of everything during the time that COVID hit was recorded towards coming from China. Now, who in God's name that's supposed to be in charge of all this would have left us so vulnerable and dependent upon somebody like China to supply our medical needs? Do you realize how quickly that would put the American people, with so many people right now, with the baby boomers and all the retirees and etc.? Do you realize how quickly that would put people to their knees if there was supposedly a complete, total stifling all medical procedures and all medical medications? In addition, and I've already mentioned this once before, I think it was last year I mentioned this in some of my other videos, in addition to the people that are really way, way out there, they're basically schizophrenics, they're schizophrenic psychopaths, and if you do not keep these people heavily medicated on a hour-by-hour basis, they will fall into an act of rage, and the next thing you know, they will be uncontrollable, because that's basically the only way of controlling these people is through this high, I don't know if it's Thorazine, I don't know if it's whatever it is. I've forgotten a lot of the names of the psychiatric medications, but if you do not heavily medicate these people, they'll basically lash out to society. Well, that's what we could be looking at, my friends, if we don't scratch our heads and try to figure out a solution to these problems. And I realize that the American people and the world in general has been flooded by all these problems that has recently hit since COVID has hit. But if we don't take hold and get a handle on what's happening, the catastrophics in behind all this is basically astronomical. My pharmacist, he said, Dennis, if I was you, he said, I'd go ahead and take the 4 boxes versus the 5, because I can't guarantee you if I can either come up with another box. He said, because there's about 20 people ahead of you that there's shortage on the same product. So my pharmacist was being very, very courageously true to me in what he was saying. His name is Blake. He works for the Walmart pharmacy department, and I think he's a good guy, and I don't think he's going to missteer me and lie to me and tell me stuff in other words, I don't think he's going to intentionally mislead me pertaining to various medications that I've been forced to have to take now since I've gotten older, and since the United States government, working out of Kentucky, basically decided that they was going to poison me by putting me on Risperdal, that basically messed my whole system up, that I'm still trying to recover and recuperate from. Please watch.
Massive cyber attack against a healthcare giant and the chaos it's causing for everyone, from hospitals to doctors' offices to pharmacies and patients. Liz Kreutz with our report.
I'm going to back this up just a little bit to start all over again here.
Massive
Hold it.
For healthy joints.
Before he
We're back now.
Says what he wants to say here. If our judicial system, our courts, does not look at these crimes pertaining to cyber crimes, especially attacking entities like this, towards making it twice as steep, not only monetarily pertaining to fines, but also prison time, these events will only grow worse. This is where the courts, the system in general, has failed the American people, because we want to pat people on the back of the hand and tell them not to do it again, and it's basically turning into nothing but an evolving door. They go out one door, they come in another. They go out one door, they come in another. They go out one door, they come in another. Why is that? Because the leadership of this great nation, people has failed to recognize the dangers involved in AI, and that's exactly what he's talking about here. He's talking about a breach in how people can basically go in and steal your identity, or how that they can swipe your credit cards, and the next thing you know, you go to the bank and you thought that you had $20,000 in there, and now you ain't got but $2 in there. And don't say it can't happen, because I myself was hit through another banking industry that I work with, that all of a sudden I rented out a 5-day cabin up in the Elks that was almost $1,000 for 5 days. Well, my bank luckily backed it up. I don't know how they found out. I don't know how they got to retrieve the money back, but they backed it up towards me not having to be out that expense, because it was basically the monkey that fell up onto their back that allowed for that account to be breached to begin with, because it was not an active account per se towards me dibbly-dabbling in it and on it every day. It was an account that basically I get from from my banking industry, that if you agree to these terms, you can take out a certain amount of money, and as long as you pay that money back within, let's say, a 12-month or an 18-month term, you will not be charged any extra interest. But if you lax in not paying that balance off, then you no longer work with entities such as 8.5%, 9%, 10%, 12%, 14% interest. Now you start working with entities such as 22%, 24% interest, because of penalty fees and et cetera that's added onto that. So it is a risk by taking that, but it can be a risk well taken if you cross all your T's and dot all your I's, and you make sure that those people are paid off during the time that they're supposed to be paid off. That account was only used once. It was a one-time transaction. I took the card, tore it up, ripped it up, and destroyed it. Never used, never dibble-dabbled around in that account again. But yet now, somebody took wind to that account, and they breached that account. Now, you may think, well, you done it yourself. How did I do it? I only took out money one time in that transaction. Then I took the card, I tore it up. Never used it again. So somebody had to go within that banking system, that knew that banking system, or somebody sold somebody some information that they wasn't supposed to have sold, and the next thing you know, my account got breached. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay that bill off, because I've never been to the Elks. I've never been over there towards, and they'll know. They can put two and two together if your appeal is legitimate or not. Because if you're appealing something, and they get to looking at all your other accounts and say, well, he took out an airplane ride to go to that place. He bought this over there. He took out a fare on travel over there. He done this, and so they put all the dots together, which adds up whether or not you're lying to them or not. They can pretty well figure that out within a matter of hours now. Not days, but hours. But the fact of the matter is, how come there are breaches, windows of opportunity, to where the common day, everyday crook, the smart crook now, can go in and breach these walls that's not supposed to be breachable? Just like what we're talking about right here pertaining to medicine. Do you realize how many people could die immediately if they was not given their medication? Do you realize how many people would basically go from being halfway moderately civilized to being just basically out and out zombies out on the streets if they wasn't getting their psychiatric medication? Not hundreds, but tens of thousands. That's how close we are, my friends, to a total breakdown of the system. Please listen.
Massive cyber attack against a healthcare giant and the chaos it's causing for everyone, from hospitals to doctors' offices to pharmacies and patients. Liz Kreutz with our report.
Thank you for calling Magnolia Pharmacy. At Magnolia Pharmacy in Los Angeles, it's been 2 weeks of chaos.
It's impacting everybody, pharmacies, patients.
The pharmacy left in limbo from a cyber attack on Change Healthcare, the nation's largest medical claims processing company that for days has prevented many providers from filling patients' prescriptions. This pharmacy has moved to an entirely new server so they can now process their prescriptions, but it's not a perfect fix. They still can't look up patients' insurance information or take coupons for name brand drugs.
Sometimes it takes 1 hour to 2 hours for one single patient to find their insurance.
Change, which is owned by United Health Group, says it processes 15 billion transactions a year and works across more than 67,000 pharmacies.
The $590 we paid out of pocket yesterday. And
Sienna Keller says she had no choice but to pay out of pocket for what her stepdaughter needs to treat her diabetes. That's a lot of money.
yeah, then I don't know how much longer we could really afford to go through it.
Tonight, Change Healthcare not responding to reports it's believed to have paid a $22 million ransom to the hackers. In a statement, the company saying it is working closely with law enforcement and that it's implemented workarounds to help bring some systems back online. In the meantime, experts say patients should ask their doctors about obtaining drug samples or lower-cost alternatives.
This system needs to get fixed.
A massive disruption showing how vulnerable and interconnected our healthcare system is. Liz Kreutz, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Coming up, a look at your money in the 2024 election, why one bellwether district is ground zero for the strange reality of the U.S. economy.
It's awful. Absolutely awful in what's going on right now in people's lives that don't deserve this.
Address tomorrow will be his biggest chance yet to tout his handling of the economy. But in at least one key battleground, many voters say his message is not connecting. Here's Dasha Burns.
Daryl Grace has lived in Erie County, Pennsylvania all his life. The former maintenance worker is an avowed Steelers fan and muscle car aficionado. In 2020, he voted for Biden, but 3 years later, he says the economic growth the president talks about isn't helping him. How does the economy feel to you?
It doesn't feel well. You know, it says everything's doing better, but it doesn't feel that way.
Daryl's kids, both in their mid-20s and employed, still live at home.
When I retired, I didn't expect for my kids to be here with me. You know, it's like my golden years, me and the wife.
You thought you'd be empty nester.
Yeah, you know, having fun, you know.
As for his vote come November,
If it's Biden and Trump, it's bad.
are you considering going third party?
Yeah.
President Biden narrowly flipped this bellwether county in 2020 thanks to strong Democratic turnout and won the state. But with his approval rating on the economy at just 36%,
See, he's not the only one that is upset with the system in general, regardless whether it's a system being run through the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. The system has failed the American people. And that's what I continue to keep saying again and again and again, that you're looking at insanity in voting the same people back in again towards thinking that they're going to repair that in which what they was the ones that caused to begin with.
swing state Pennsylvania is very much in play.
I think he is done.
Whenever you want to point your finger at criminally insane people, that they're criminally minded, they're criminally insane, well, you basically need to take your focus and spread it out to no longer just looking at the common old Joe out here on the streets that wants to steal purses and knock people on the head and steal their credit cards and hack into their systems. But now you need to actually start looking at your bankers, your lawyers, your judges, your politicians, the people that has the ability and the smarts to be able to do these things that now are either doing them or they're allowing for them to be done. Either or, it's just as bad pertaining to dereliction of duty.
A good job.
Republican turned independent Marianne Frontino is planning to support Biden.
We did not go into a recession. It's kind of surprising that people aren't more in support of him. He has a real PR.
Now, she's probably retired. She probably draws a good little pension check from her retirement, and whoever that she's significant other is, they probably was smart enough to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and basically have everything paid off, which that's fine, that's good. But not everybody is in the same position that she's in.
PR problem, a big PR problem.
That problem for the president is playing out at Eduardo's Tavern, where we met a group of conservative customers.
You've got low unemployment rates, wages are up, inflation is easing, stock market's doing well. What are you feeling any of that? How do you feel about the economy day to day? I'm not sure I agree with what you just said.
I never planned on using some of the money that I saved to retire that I had to use because of the economy.
Groceries, gas, everything you have to buy every day is way more expensive than previous years.
Do you feel like there's a disconnect between what the Biden administration is saying about how good the economy is versus what you feel?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
A disconnect that Democrats will have to address this election year. Dasha Burns, NBC News, Erie, Pennsylvania.
And up next for us, the future of airport security. Is self-service coming to an airport near you?
It's just a matter of time before we're going to wind up being like China, pretending to have an AI everywhere, going through security cameras and all this other stuff. It's just a matter of time for all that's going to take place. Going to take place right here in the good old USA.
A bill moving through Congress may give you the chance to be compensated for radiation exposure ahead how you'd qualify.
Plus, the federal program you can access at the local level, making it easier for some people to buy a home. And we're getting a small break from rain, but not for long.
It's all ahead at 6.
It's all ahead at 6.
Stamp honoring former First Lady Betty Ford was unveiled today. First Lady Jill Biden and Mrs. Ford's daughter were on hand for the ceremony at the White House. The stamp will be officially dedicated on April 5th, 3 days before Mrs. Ford would have turned 106. Finally, with the TSA predicting a record spring break getaway, it's testing what could be the security checkpoint of the future. Here's Tom Costello.
If you've learned to quickly check yourself out at the grocery store, the TSA's checkpoint of the future may be for you.
Somebody's got to be the guinea pig.
In Las Vegas, the TSA is now testing a self-checkpoint only for pre-check flyers who know the routine by heart.
Done this now, I would say this is faster.
Faster?
Yeah.
Is this the future?
Could be.
Rather than moving travel trays, TSA officers instead can focus on security.
Hi there, how may I help you today?
With officers on demand to answer travelers' questions.
When you're all done, go ahead and slide your items forward.
Carry-ons that require rescreening cycle back automatically to save time. And this is what's new. You come in and you put your arms down to the side, and it's going to look for anything that shouldn't be there. And it's telling me I got to come back out. I have a microphone, of course, that it's detected. I've got the transmitter on my belt, and something a lot of people forget, my cell phone. The Las Vegas test comes as the TSA forecasts another record-breaking spring break season. Already, passenger volume is up 6% over last year. TSA Chief David Pekoski.
The challenge is to be able to provide the level of security we need to provide with the changing threat environment that we face, and to be as efficient as we possibly can.
After a 6-month trial run in Vegas.
It was great. Quick. No hassle. hassle.
The TSA will decide whether any of this technology might come to an airport near you. Tom Costello, NBC News, Las Vegas.
Airport, it'll probably be in courthouses and other areas all over the world pertaining to security issues. I'm really surprised that technology hadn't already put this out.
And that is Nightly News for this Wednesday. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'm Lester Holt. Please take care of yourself and each other. Good night.
Now, let me ask you a question. If we got technology that would do that, pertaining to humans, how come at the border we don't have the same type of technology that can look into an automobile? It doesn't matter if it's an 18-wheeler, the trailer of an 18-wheeler, or look into a truck bed that's got a false bottom to it, to where if you lift the bottom up, that's where they can store all the heroin and all the other fentanyl and all the other drugs. How come we do not have a system set up, especially on the borders, to where these x-ray machines can identify that, just like the mail? How come that we don't have this stuff in the mail that can identify drugs being transported from other countries to the United States? You know, there's only so far that a dog can go pertaining to a drug sniffing animal. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. And God bless our endeavors towards where we go from this moment on. The day after Super Tuesday, year 2024. March. I think it's the 6th. Let me look to be sure. Yep, March the 6th. God bless America, and shalom.